Hello there. Good morning to all of you on this lovely Tuesday morning. First off, sorry I haven't been on very often lately. I decided to slow down in making videos because I don't want to just overload myself with work or overload you with just fluff content. I decided to only make videos when it's relevant. And second off, I did it. I saw the Masters of the Universe movie, and all I can say is every terrible thing that was said about it was a lie, a terrible lie. It's great. And this movie was obviously made with a lot of love, a lot of consideration, and a lot of respect for the lore of He Man. Is it perfect? No. I do find that at times some of the jokes were kind of stupid. And they did sometimes do stuff that was a little left field. But you know what? There is no such thing as a perfect movie anyway. So I'm not going to bite its head off or the creators' heads off for making a film with a few flaws. However, I want to talk about how I came into this movie feeling. When I came into this movie, got into it and first heard about it, my initial reaction was excitement, followed by fear that they were going to do yet another reimagining without really understanding or respecting the lore. And I feel this is a common problem with a lot of fans of nostalgia media. And it's a very understandable and very valid fear because let's face it, Hollywood has been very, very naughty when it comes to rebooting and reimagining media that's iconic and old, especially from the 80s, feeling this need to fix what isn't broken. So I fear that a lot of the criticism is coming from that fear that now every single reimagining, every little change detail is triggering. But all I can say is that fans, if you want Hollywood to heal, you have to heal too. You have to give it a chance and stop going through everything with a fine comb and saying this is problematic, that is problematic, this is trying to tell yet another like a modern audience message, and really, it's not. It's just yes, it is getting with the times a little. Like with the fact that there is some silliness in He Man that was always there, but don't get me wrong, it's why we love it. But you know what? Getting with the times is not the problem. And I'm just going to say this outright, especially with Tila's outfit. Had she been dressing up in that battle bathing suit in the live action, it would not have translated well. I'm actually glad they gave her pants. And personally, I thought a lot of the designs were brilliant. And I just have to say this if no one else will say it out loud. Sir Idris Elba did to Man at Arms what Samuel Jackson did for Nick Fury. He was epic and stole the show beautifully. Anyway, I also want to talk a little bit about the movie, how I do in fact agree that it was a criticism on masculinity, but not just in the way we expect. Yes, it touched upon the toxic false traits of masculinity, which I will not even bring up because that has been brought up to death by everyone and their mother. And this mother here doesn't need to bring that up. So I instead want to talk about the other side of masculinity that it did point out and in a very clever way, especially when I should also say there are some spoilers here, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, stop watching this video now, come back to it after you've watched it. Pardon me for the late warning. And I anyways, as I was saying, there was a scene that stuck with me about how in the beginning we can see Adam on Earth and feeling very dissatisfied and very frustrated and facing a lot of flack. And even at the end of the movie, his experiences on Earth are revisited and amplified in the negative way, because they are in fact negative, when Skeletor does a deep dive into his mind and playing up a lot of his insecurities, but also a lot of his fears. And this is a modern day problem that I find is very relevant when it comes to masculinity in men and boys in general. It's the fear of expressing any single instance of traditional masculinity, because we have conditioned them to think that if you are ever too loud, if you are ever too masculine, if you are ever too aggressive or too confident in yourself, you're going to be seen as a moron, an aggressor, or a predator. But the thing is, that's not what masculinity is. Authentic masculinity, that is natural, is in fact beautiful and necessary in society. Like, what also stuck with me in the movie was that scene with the seminar where they always say, I have the power gently, I do this and that consensually. Like, this desperate attempt to, well, yes, it is desperate. This desperate attempt to shave off every single masculine edge and roughness, sand it all down and everything, and make every everything about men soft. In fact, makes them creepier and weirder and more awkward to be around than by just letting them be natural. Like, if you go to a hairdresser and you're expecting them to touch your hair and everything, if a hairdresser was to go and tell you, hey, do I have your consent to touch your hair? That would weird you out and you probably want to leave because this would be weird to you. It's the same thing with firefighters. When they go and rescue people from a fire, they're not going to sit there and say, "Hey, do I have your consent to touch you, to pick you up and drag you out of the fire?" They're not going to do that. That's going to come across as weird and kind of stupid, actually. When somebody is in a fire and they're passed out on the floor, you just know that the decent thing to do is to pick them up and get them out of there. Like, that is an example of authentic masculinity that's positive. Knowing what you have to do and doing it. Another thing that was an authentic instance of masculinity in the movie was Adam taking a stand against his job that he was not satisfied with, and understanding that he would probably lose his job, but didn't care. He did what he wanted to do. He did what was important to himself, even if it meant losing his job, which was dead end anyway, instead of putting his head down and submitting to everything the man, or in his case, the woman, since his boss was a woman, told him to do. To me, that was a moment of an oh yes moment. That is the Prince Adam I know. That is the He-Man I know. Yes, He-Man is actually a clown and not good at fighting. And when he is Prince Adam, he's kind of a skinny kid. But he himself is aware of it and he's not ashamed of it. In fact, he has a lot of fun with it. And I appreciate that in Prince Adam and He-Man as a character. It's why we love him, because he was the earliest case of breaking the stereotype of what a male character who is the hero and main character should be like. He's funny, he's clumsy, he wears pink, and he loves every bit of himself as he is. and wouldn't change himself for anyone. When Tila rejects him romantically, also, yes, you can see he's disappointed, but he's also very gracious about it and never brings it up again and accepts her decision. Another instance of like authentic masculinity in the movie, which wasn't just expressed by Adam, but also a guy he saw at the gym, an older man who was in his graying years but still very muscular. And we all know he was the original actor who played the original He Man movie back in the 80s, which, in my opinion, was still a fun movie, even if it was B rated. But I digress. The point is, he turned around and did what is a very, in my, as people say, is a very bro thing to do. He turned around and asked some advice from that guy with experience. And the guy turned around and gave it to him. Very good, genuine advice. That is also an instance of masculinity. Brotherhood. Being able to turn and ask for help. Or at the very end, which everybody sees as comedy and everything, when He-Man gave Skeletor a chance to tell his side of the story of why he was the way he was and an offer of peace. A lot of people perceive this as comedy, and it was, but it was also a very serious and non traditional yet manly thing to do. He was offering Skeletor a chance to be vulnerable without judgment, a chance at redemption, a chance at expressing why he is the way he is. And the real clown in that moment wasn't Adam, or He-Man as he was in that form. It was Skeletor. Because the truth is, Skeletor is hiding a very vulnerable and hurt side of himself that he doesn't talk about, ever. Except in very, very rare once in a blue moon instances in the media of He-Man. He is actually the older brother, a half brother of Randor. He was the son of a mistress that He-Man's grandfather sired. So technically, he is the firstborn prince and should have had a claim to the throne, but didn't because he was the son of a mistress. And he was seen, his whole existence was seen as a mark of shame, and above all else, he's actually only half human. The name of his other half, the half of what he is not human, eludes me. But the point is that Skeletor was seen as an ugly secret to cover up and be sent away, and that a lot of his evil can be traced back to that. And had he admitted that, he would have gotten some form of justice, some form of genuine empathy. This isn't to say that he's absolved of his sins. He, in his adult life, makes a conscious decision to be cruel, to be harsh, and to be evil. And it's very obvious that he is, in fact, sadistic, a bully, and an abuser to Evelyn, who has made it multiple times very clear that she does love him, but that love immediately dies when he hurts her, physically and emotionally. And his lust for power is clearly there. Like the fact that he did have a horrible childhood and was born into a very unfair situation, though, for him to be hurt about that, that is a justified reason to be hurt. Nobody should be treated that way. And He-Man gave him that chance to say that, to show that he is not just a monster, that at least at one time he was a person. He was a victim at one time. And bringing awareness to his pain could have possibly even spared a lot of other children born into that situation from future pain. But instead, Skeletor did the toxic thing of saying, I have no good in me, I really am just a monster, be afraid of me. So He-Man treated him accordingly. And that's what I wanted to say. Like, yes, He-Man addressed the false toxic masculinity that we all know about, but it also addressed the masculinity problem in our society now that we really ought to talk about, which is to not see masculinity as a disease or a flaw that we have to beat out of men and boys or society in general. Masculinity, when it's natural and authentic and done right, it can be absolutely beautiful, heroic, and sexy. In Prince Adam's case, his masculinity compels him to be confident enough to walk away from a job he's not happy with. It compels him to express how he really feels. It compels him to have the confidence to be self aware of what he is bad at and be able to laugh at himself about it and even have fun with it. It compels him to be not give up and become resourceful in a situation that's hard. It compels him to not forget about his roots, no matter how laughable they are to the people around him on Earth. And it all pays off for Adam. He finds the sword. He goes back to Eternia. He saves Eternia. He finds new purpose in life. And that is what I wanted to say about He-Man. Anything you hear about this movie, it's wrong in terms of the negative criticism that it's disrespectful to the lore and mocking He-Man. It really isn't. Anytime we sit there laughing at Prince Adam or He-Man is no different from what we used to see in the classic cartoons. And when we are laughing at him, we're laughing with him. Because this is what He-Man is. He-Man is a jokester. He's not a big, serious, gritty man. He's gentle. He's sweet. He's funny. He smiles. He's a gentleman. It's why, out of all the heroes out there, he's named He-Man, because he is, in fact, peak masculinity. Because he's real. He's not pretending. He's not putting up this front of being cold and unfeeling. He is what he is. And he just throws punches when he really needs to. And I just have to say this from now. When he does fight, you do take him seriously. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening. Hope you all have a great Tuesday and a great week. I'll see you in the next one. Maybe to possibly do another art stream. You stay safe out there, and like I said, if you haven't seen the Masters of the Universe movie yet, see it. You won't be disappointed. And above all else, see it with an open mind. Thank you. Goodbye. I love you all. And if you love what I do, please become a subscribe to this channel. Check out my Linktree link to see all of the comics and art and books that I write. And also, you can become a Ko-fi member on my Ko-fi, or just drop me a Ko-fi, or even commission me for work. Every little bit helps me out, so thank you in advance. Goodbye.